I just got this beautiful new coffee from El Salvador. It's a honey process that I'll be featuring in the next upcoming Ugly Coffees. Let's talk about how I'm going to roast it, how I prepare it, and then how I brew it. So these are the beans right here. As you guys can see, they're kind of like orangey green. So green beans, if you've never seen them, they're normally like washed coffees. They're very clean. Honey process, they tend to have this kind of orangey color to it. You can see there's a little bit of chaff. This is what we call a small little defect. There's a little hole there, so we're going to remove that. When I roast coffees, typically I do sort through my coffees to make sure that there's no defects. The color is really beautiful. This is more typical from like a natural or a honey, but the bean size is kind of normal in my opinion. They're not big, they're not small. So let's talk about how that affects during the roasting. Hey guys, if you guys are new here, my name is Vincent. I'm the head roaster for Tails Coffee. If you guys like these kind of brewing theories or like kind of want to follow along my Ugly project, make sure to hit the subscribe and like the video because that helps me out a lot. It's a little backstory about this coffee. It's from El Salvador. It's a yellow honey process. The guy, it's his mother-in-law's kind of farm, so he can get it at a very good price. And then he tries to just help her move some of the product by selling at a good price. So we did get this at a good price. This is $7.45 Canadian dollars a pound. The crop itself started growing in 2023 with a lot of El Salvador or like Central American coffees. They're harvested early in the year. So it was harvested around February is what he said. After processing and everything, it got shipped here in about June. So it's been in Canada for about a year, which is probably why he's trying to move it. And I got a good deal, but that was a price that he was selling at anyways. So I think the pricing is based on the pricing from last year, which is why it's kind of a good deal. Now, if you guys don't know, coffee beans generally we tell people to use within about a year for roasting, for green beans at least, because then they start to go stale, which is perfect for me. This is within that time frame, and it is still a very good coffee. So when we roast, I like to look at the volume of the beans. If they're small, that just means it doesn't take up as much volume, which means we can generally use a little bit more weight. I plan to use about 80% capacity, which brings me up to 2.4 kilos of green beans. And then we lose about 16 to 17% during the roasting. That's what brings it to the light to medium range. And that's kind of how I do my roasting. So if we lose about 16% of the beans, if you do the math quickly, I think that actually, I don't have it off the top of my head. Let me see. Let's go 7.45 divided by 1.84. So if we lose 16% of the beans, it costs about $8.86 a pound Canadian to just roast this. And then there's also like the gas fees, the electric fees, and everything, and labor, and then the rental of obviously our space itself. So all of that after adding that all up together, we add another $1.80 per pound. It comes to $11.74 for 500 grams. So to produce the 2 bags of Uglies, this would have cost $11.74. And then we also have to add the bagging fees and then the bags themselves and the driving for the shipping. So that's kind of what we're looking at. I will actually be starting to talk a lot more about costs and cost of coffees and just showing you guys how roasters can kind of break it down. But back to the coffee itself, it would cost me about $12 to kind of produce 500 grams of this. So I don't really make a profit at all. Now, the bean itself, it is small. So that just means I think that the heat will get to the middle very quickly. If that's the case, we don't need to have a very long kind of prep time, earlier time. So because we're using more volume or like the average volume in the roaster, I like to use a slightly higher temperature to start with. I drop my beans at about 180 degrees Celsius, which drops it down to about 94 at the very lowest, which means we can have a very high, low starting point. Anyways, I'll probably go about this more in detail for those that want to learn more about the roasting. But I think it's actually very interesting to kind of learn this kind of stuff. So during the roasting process, because this is a honey process, I do think that it burns quite easily. I do believe that the Maillard reaction is going to be a little bit more predominant. So towards the end of the roast, we want to drop the temperature quite quickly without it stalling. So stalling is the act of just, the gases not being able to push the coffee during the exothermic reaction, or aka the first crack, enough. And when that happens, we're going to get this kind of like bready flavor that we're not looking for. We want to keep the fruit forward. We want to have it decently sped. So finding that balance is always the tricky part, in my opinion. But I like to have a higher airflow, and then this one cracks a little bit earlier than my other coffees. So this one, after testing, it started cracking about 190.5, which is a little bit lower than some other coffees. Some of my other coffees, they crack around 194, 195, but this one was very evenly cracking at about 190.5. So that was a little bit interesting for me. And as for why, I am not experienced enough to tell you guys. So anyways, why don't we brew a coffee together? So I roasted a test batch last night. Let's roast it, or let's brew it, and then we'll talk about what kind of roasting changes I would make for the actual coffees I'm selling. So this is what the coffee looks like before roasting, and then this is what it looks like after roasting. I finished this coffee at about 201 degrees, which I think, or it'll be like a 15.8% loss. So it's actually on the light roast side, but you can see that the color itself doesn't seem very light. That's because in honey processes, because there's more sugars, they tend to turn a little bit more dark. So anyone that thinks this is a dark coffee, you are incorrect. As you can see, there's one Quaker here. If I kind of just look through here, there's not too many Quakers. It was just the one. So very high quality coffee. This is 87 points. So let's grind it up and see how it brews. So this is what it looks like after grinding it up. You can see that the color is quite a bit lighter. For some reasons, it lightens up as you grind it. There's not a lot of chaff. There's not a lot of small particles. What I tend to like to do is I like to actually put it through a sifter and see how much of the fines come out. But for this video, I don't think I'm going to do it. I will do it in the next one when I have a better roast. So yeah, let's brew it up and see what it tastes like. We're going to start by adding in the beans. Oh, this is a very... Mind you, I don't normally use this plate to drop the beans. We have a little bit over 20 grams of beans. And then we're just going to stir it in. The act of stirring is to break up the grinds. Today, because this is just a test roast, I'll be using 90-degree water. I am brewing from the side because I don't want the camera to be in my way. Pouring down the chopstick as always to create the slowest pour. And then once we get this part, we're just going to stir. This is my current standard method. I just stir all the grinds in. You can see the color. Oh, there goes the sun. But the color of the gas is quite like orangey. It's not a super light white. So it is on the lighter to medium kind of roast. I like to tell the roast profile just based on the color of the crema. It's kind of an interesting way to do it, but I think it works really well for me. Decent amount of, you can see that there's still gases just being released. We're going to do the 1 to 15. 300 grams of water. You can see that there's no particles floating up. We've got ourselves a pretty good extraction here, and we're going to see how long this takes to drain. So as you can see, there's a little bit of grinds on the side of the walls. There's a little bit floating up here, which means I probably under extracted it. I could probably do with a little bit more stirring. This is actually the first time I am brewing it. I cupped it earlier, but I didn't brew it. So yeah, this is my first time. So there's probably a bit more gases than I was expecting. The flow rate, though, so far is pretty good. We're at 2 minutes and 39 seconds. And yes, I did stop the video so I could take a picture, but the picture looked really good. So worth. Anyways, we have our standard dough. Granulars are looking pretty nice, actually. It's not too muddy. With a little bit more stirring, I could probably sink everything. That, and I should have poured a little bit slower. I think I poured a little bit too quickly. That was my general problem. Overall, very good brew. It's looking pretty good. Pretty clean cup of coffee. So let's taste it and talk about it. Okay, so this coffee, because it's a honey process, I expect it to be a little bit heavier, richer of a taste. The color is really nice and brown. A little orangey tint to it. It has a bit of like an underdeveloped flavor, which I kind of expected because it is on the light roast. Generally, coffee is at the 15.5 to 16% loss rate, has a bit of greenness unless you stall it, which then you get this breadiness. So I think either way, it's kind of tough to have a great, at least I'm not great at doing a very, very great light roast. At least not like roasted for the day after. Okay, so this was roasted yesterday. It will have a greenness to it. Normally a lighter roast takes about 6 to 8 days for this kind of greenness to kind of fade away. I just like to taste right away, so I know what I'm working with. Right off the bat, you don't really get too much of the greenness out there. There's a really nice sweetness to it. There's a really good texture to it as well. Honey processes, in my opinion, tend to have a good texture, but honey processes have this kind of like funkiness to it. This one's not super funky, but it has a bit of that kind of like, I don't know, how would you put it? Molasses kind of taste. Not so much, but it's like this like funky kind of like molassy kind of taste to it. Great acidity, not super acidic, but it's like a balanced acidity. The greenness gives it a bit of like a winter melon flavor to it. There's a nice kind of like orangey, I would say almost like a persimmon kind of taste to it. So I think those are just kind of like my current thoughts on it. If I were to bring it up maybe 1 or 2 degrees in the roaster, I'd probably remove that a little bit of the greenness, so less of the winter melon flavor and more of kind of like this like sweeter tone to it. I think maybe an extra 15 seconds would have done the job. So this was just a sample roast. This is my first roast. And you know, for the fact I don't ever factor in my experimental roasts or learning the new coffees into my pricing. Why? It's because I think it's just a cost that I have to incur from my own learning process. Different beans just react differently to the heat, and I don't think I want to pass that on to the customers. I want to take that cost myself. So that's just how I think for costing. Anyways, you know, like I said, I kind of want to get into the costing, but the taste of this coffee will be better. It'll be perfected by the time we get to the Ugly Coffees, which will be released the first and third Fridays of every month. The next drop will have this and a natural Ethiopian. That one is an 85 point coffee as well. This is closer to 86. He said he cupped it around 86 to 87. That's what I'm expecting. I don't do anything with scoring. I just listen to what the Q graders say. That's if they say it's an 86, it's an 86. This one actually doesn't have a lot of defects. I checked the whole bag. Generally, when it comes to scoring, I look for defects. I found maybe like 2 very small defects in this bean within 1 kilogram. So that's me kind of like looking for it. Little blemishes like I don't know, like scratches here and there on the bean surface don't count. They don't dig deep or whatever. I look for like real defects. Anyways, we'll talk about that another day. I thought it'd be kind of interesting, kind of show you guys what it's like to receive the beans, what it's like to kind of like what goes through my head during the roasting process. If you guys want more of this kind of information, I know it's going to be a long video, but please let me know in the comment section below. I don't see a lot of roasters kind of talking about how they roast or their thought process behind their roasts. So I wanted to share a bit of my behind the scenes knowledge with you guys, or what I'm discovering on that side too. I'm not just a brewer. I'm looking to kind of perfect the roast so that I can always roast what my clients want. I actually do a lot more wholesale than I do retail. So this is just having the experience, or the Ugly Coffee is just more for me to kind of like work with a lot of different beans. From most of my wholesale is just actually cheap coffees, but sometimes they want some like nice coffees, and I'd prefer not to spend too much time or effort losing money just to experiment different test roasts on them. But yeah, this is what I do. This is what I think. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about this video. Is this something you're interested in listening to or not? I don't know. I just want to make better coffee for you guys. So both from the roasting and then from the brewing side. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. If you stayed to the end, I really appreciate it. Check my website for my coffees. Anyways, have a great rest of your day. Happy brewing, okay?